Welcome everyone. My name is Nicholas Perez, principal of Cheltenham Elementary School. And the presentation this afternoon is regarding our hybrid program and focusing on the virtual instructional model. Just so you know, this presentation is being recorded. So for those of you who have any folks that want to watch it, just let them know. If they couldn't make it, they will have a recording. It'll be posted on the district website, also our CES website. In addition, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A section. As we go through the presentation, your questions may be answered as we go through the presentation. However, we do have an opportunity at the end of the presentation for your questions to be answered. So you can use that box to ask any questions you might have, and at the end of the presentation, we'll get to those questions. So let's get started. Before I begin, I do want to recognize I have another panelist with me, Mrs. O'Connor. So she is here as well, and she's just gonna be here to take notes and keep me on track. And I'd like to thank Mr. Kaufman as well for setting this up. Obviously these aren't easy with everyone trying to have town hall meetings at the same time. So this was a great opportune time for us to have this version. And I specifically wanted to have something for our virtual students and families because there is a lot that we're talking about via the hybrid model, as well as the students that are coming back in the in-person learning model. So I wanted to separate the virtual presentation so that I can gear it specifically for those virtual families, talk to you about any changes that you're going to see because of this shift. And in addition, you have the opportunity to ask specific questions related to just how this impacts your child in the virtual setting. All right, so let's get started. This is just a layout of our agenda and what we're going to be doing this afternoon. All right, just a little fun slide to let you know what I've been doing since March and this crazy pandemic. And obviously we've had to shift a lot in what we're doing in our day-to-day, but I've been spending a lot of time with my family, which has been wonderful for me. In addition to the fact that we've all mastered this virtual learning and virtual space in our jobs and our Zooms. So if you don't see me doing work on Zoom, I am with my family or on my motorcycle. So that's what I've been doing, or spending time with my two kids, Alex and Mandy, and my two dogs, my two Bostons in there as well. So that's what I've been doing since March, and I continue to do when I'm not working at work or working from home. All right, so this is just to give you an idea of our enrollment and how many students we're going to be having, both in person and the other students, your students who are going to be in the virtual setting. So it almost broke down almost evenly, about 50%. So this kind of gives you an idea of how many students are going to be in your teacher's classroom for the in-person. So that's what's listed underneath each of the grade categories. And then obviously the other students are going to be your students who are going to be at home and learning virtually. So we have about 199 students in hybrid, in the hybrid model, and 190 in the virtual model. And again, just to clarify, I want to clarify, we're all moving to a hybrid model, but it's just the mode of instruction we're going into, whether it's in person or virtual. Okay. All right. As far as admission and dismissal, the schedule still remains the same. We definitely wanted to make sure that we held true to the schedule for the students. A lot of you had made daycare arrangements, various arrangements regarding who stays with your children, and you've kind of worked around your work schedule, home schedule to make this happen. So as we created a schedule, we are very intentional to try to keep the schedule for the amount of synchronous time to be the same. So that has not changed. So students are still required to log in to their Google Meet classes at 9 a.m. And the end of the synchronous learning time officially is 1:20. But there is some additions that we wanted to kind of let you know about. There are opportunities, as there are now, for enrichment, intervention, small groups that are occurring now. So your child may already be participating in an afternoon group, maybe once a week or twice a week. They may have been invited to a group. That is going to continue. That is going to continue moving forward. It's just that we probably will have students in the classroom as well from the synchronous learning who are there as well. But just to let you know that that is still going to continue. And one of the things that we are excited about too is that we have not had to make any changes in homerooms, homeroom teachers. So because of the fact that we've had a balanced amount of folks in the hybrid model, both virtual and in person, we have had the ability to keep our classrooms the same as far as the students and teachers go, and we have not had to make any major changes. Please continue to communicate with your classroom teacher if there are any instances where your child's going to be late in the synchronous session, or they're going to be absent, or they're going to leave early from that virtual space. We also wanted to let you know that on February 1st, the first day of the in-person hybrid, all students will be asynchronous that day. So your child is not going to be live instruction with their teacher. That is going to allow the teachers to really focus in on those in-person students for that day. Obviously, students that are in the building, logistically, they need to have some time to get acclimated. The teacher's going to need to give them a lot of instruction. So we are giving them the day to really focus in on those in-person students and get the students kind of acclimated to the building and the procedures that are in place. So the teacher's plans will continue kind of like any asynchronous Wednesday. Your child's still expected to go on, complete those activities asynchronously, as the teachers will be going in and checking to make sure that they complete that work and the day counts for attendance. So I know this is a little hard to see, but just to kind of give you an idea, the schedules relatively remain the same. Just want to point out one of the major differences that you will see from this schedule versus the schedule that they currently have in virtual. The virtual schedule currently, students have lunch around the same time, and we purposely did that so that we knew that people were off at a certain time and they would come back on at a certain time. Obviously, made it convenient for situations where you had siblings in your homes, having breaks at the same time, etc. However, with having in-person students in this model, we're not able to do that, obviously, because we have to have various separate lunch periods in order to accommodate students. So your students will go back to a more traditional schedule of different lunch breaks. So they still will have the same amount of lunch and recess breaks. It's still 40 minutes. However, it's going to be at a different time. So your teachers will share with you what that schedule will look like if they haven't done that already. A lot of them have, but this just gives you an idea of what that looks like. The afternoons will still remain asynchronous for all students. So even the students that are in in our building. A lot of the work that they're going to do is very similar work to what your kids are doing right now in the virtual setting. A lot of it is independent work. A lot of it is work through our various programs. So it is a lot of it's asynchronous. So similarly, it will continue to have new content taught throughout the week on the same days that we currently have. That has not changed. Obviously, Wednesdays continue, like I mentioned before, continue to be asynchronous. And I do want to stress to all families, Wednesdays are an instructional day, okay? Which means that even though students are asynchronous, attendance counts. So teachers send out lesson plans of things of that nature. Students are expected to do it. Teachers do check to make sure that work is turned in. Assignments that are sent out should be turned in. We do give various days in order to get that in. However, if students don't return any work, don't have anything on there, and they don't reach out to us, it counts as an absence, okay, for your child's attendance. So I want to stress how important even the asynchronous days are for all students. Okay. There will be small groups and interventions that do occur on Wednesdays, and as well as the afternoons during the other days as well. Okay. And this is just what I mentioned before. This is how we identify our students. We're all moving into a hybrid model. However, some are in person and others are virtual. Okay. Okay. Instruction will remain the same, and we will be using the same digital platforms as before. The expectations of using various programs like IXL, some of the other programs that we use, we will continue to use them for students. Okay. One of the limitations for having students both in hybrid and virtual, or in person and virtual at the same time, will be the ability for students who are now in the virtual setting to see all of the students at the same time. Okay, so we do have a mechanism where we are going to be having students that are in the classrooms be able to hear your students who are in virtual. If they answer a question, if they ask a question, etc., we are providing the tech in order to do that. However, the students who are in the in-person will not be on their computers on Google Meet. Okay, they will be looking at the smartboard that the teacher has. We'll be watching everything that the teacher is doing on the computer that the virtual kids are seeing. However, they will not be on their computers at the same time on Google Meet. Okay, and that has to do with our bandwidth capabilities to have all students on the computer at the same time. Our bandwidth does not have the capability in our buildings in order for that to happen. Okay. However, there will be opportunities for students, and I'll get into that later, where they can connect through Google Meet, for hybrid students. And if your child is in a group with them, they may see those students in a small group. Okay, curriculum items are the same as I've mentioned. We will continue that morning period of social emotional learning, and we will continue to have that in our through our asynchronous time as well for students to have lessons. As I mentioned before, the apps will remain the same. The afternoons will remain the same as far as our asynchronous, and there may be some time. Our focus is obviously practice applications. Your child may be invited as up to 2 synchronous intervention small group enrichment periods a week. So if you're, it's a possibility that if they have not been involved in a synchronous session in the afternoon, okay, even though you're virtual, you may be invited to have your child log back in for a period of time in the afternoon, for a short period of time, for a small group, whether it's intervention, enrichment. Okay. And again, just stressing the importance of Wednesdays and the and asynchronous. As I mentioned, lunches will be at different times. In the past, students would remain connected to the computer during that lunch period and that recess period, and just kind of walked away, and teachers would kind of, you know, put something on the screen or a timer, things of that nature. Students, that's going to be different this time. Students will have to log off during their lunch periods and then log back on when they return from lunch. So that's one thing you need to note, that, you know, timing, you know, teachers have been sharing some of this information with families and will practice this before. That way your students know how to log off and then log back in after periods of time. This will also happen during specialist times as well, where they would have to log off of the teacher's Google Meet and then log back in to the specialist teachers Meet. So it's important that the students all have each of the specialist classrooms, Google Classrooms on their Google Chromebook or device in order to get that, in order to connect to those specialists. So if you do not have that, we will make sure that we send that out again to all the families so that you can get all of the classroom codes to add to your child's Google Classroom. All right, we also ask that as far as the lunches go, we know you have a 30-minute recess and lunch. Okay, so we hope that kids will eat during that time. There will be breaks. So when we do have a break in the classroom, there will be a break for students online. So if there is a snack time that's done during the day, obviously your child will also have that break as well. And district lunch distribution for those families who do participate, that will still continue at Cedarbrook, and that will occur as it has now, even though we are moving into a hybrid model. This is just an idea of what the lunch schedule looks like for your child. So based on the grade level, obviously you don't have to worry about the cafeteria area part of it and the cleaning portion of it, but you can just look at the lunch periods and the recess times. And again, I want to mention all these slides will also be available to all of you as well. All right, for specials, just so that you know, we're going into a 2-week cohort model for specialists beginning on February 1st. So your child is going to have the same specialist for a 2-week block of time. So for example, if they would start off with the art teacher, they're going to have the art teacher for a full 2-week period of time. And then after that 2-week period of time, they will move to having a, let's say PE, for example, physical education for 2 weeks. Okay, so they're going to move through having the specialist for a 2-week block of time. That is due to the fact that we wanted to make sure we limit the amount of exposure between adults and students. The teachers, the specialist teachers are going into the classrooms for this instruction, except for the PE class. So library, art, and music are going to be conducted in your child's classroom. So we wanted to make sure we limit the exposure between the students and that teacher, so they will only be in certain classrooms for that 2-week block of time, and then they move into the next cohort of students. And so, you know, after spring break, we go back to this first specialist that they started off with. So it does not mean that they're not, once they have art, they won't see the art teacher for the rest of the year. There will be, at spring break, we reset and we go back to them having art again, let's say if they started with art. Okay. We will have library book distribution. So when your child does have library set up for that 2 weeks, they will be allowed to check out books. Books will kind of be brought to the classroom, select books, and then we do have a quarantine system that we use for books before they get reshelved back onto the book. So you can rest assured that we're using the same procedure that the local libraries are using. Okay. In art, there will be there might be some extra materials the art teacher will talk to you about if there's anything that they would need for you or your child to participate. We're also going to be pushing out and having extra materials that you can come by the building to pick up. If we have extra things that the art teacher would like to make sure she gets in kids' hands, we will put bins outside and you can get them at your convenience. So we will get those items to you. Okay, the physical education space, you will see just a different setting. You'll see Mr. Ward in the gym on his computer like you had before. So he won't be, but we'll still do a lot of things stationary. Students will still be at home participating the same way that they did now. And a lot of the activities will remain things that they can do in a kind of small period of time in their room in front of the computer. Okay. Music classes, obviously when the weather gets better, we'll probably have opportunities for the music teacher to go outside, obviously with connection capabilities, but obviously we will have music in the classroom. So for small group instruction, those of you who have children that participate in any kind of intervention groups for students who are struggling, students who need enrichment, those things will continue. The schedules should remain relatively the same. If there are any changes, those specialist folks will reach out to you, those support staff will reach out to you to let you know of any changes that they need to make to those schedules. What you may see is you might see students that are connecting from their classrooms if your child participates with multiple students. And as we're trying to limit those teachers' exposure to multiple students from multiple cohorts. For any Title I servicing for students, we will use an electronic consent system that we've had in the past for any kind of consent that we need for Title I programming. All right, just a couple of reminders. If your child is not feeling well, and if they're not well enough to come to the virtual session, obviously just let us know, give us a heads up, reach out to the teacher, send an email to them or Mrs. O'Connor to let us know. You can use the Blooms app. Let us know that your child's not going to log in that day. Just so you know, they can do the synchronous work, okay, if they're not feeling well that day, but yet they were able to do synchronous work in the afternoon. They were able to get things done in the afternoon. That does count for attendance, okay? So just because the child does not come on virtually for any reason, if they weren't feeling well and they did not connect in the morning, something was going on, if they log in the afternoon, they get work done that they were supposed to do that day from the asynchronous environment, okay, they will get marked present for that day, okay? So if you do need to come to the building for any reason, obviously we do have some more stricter visitor guidelines and visitor policies. Your child, if your child is coming for any kind of after school program or club or anything that they're involved with, everything has been moved virtually. So we really don't have anything going on in the building. And if your child does have to come to school for any kind of testing purposes or meet physically with any of our support staff, there is some protocols in place that that support staff will share with you and your child before they do come into the building. And any visitors that are coming, if you are coming to our building at all, you probably heard of a screening tool that we're using, a COVID screening tool. So anytime that you have to come inside our building for any reason, that needs to be filled out before you come to the building. Okay. And that is the end of the formal presentation. If you do have a question, feel free to use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we can go ahead and go to that now. All right, one of the questions was, will virtual students have the ability to check out books if they are in the library cycle or specialist? Actually, that is a very good question. And I anticipate that the question would be yes, but let me get back to you on that, because I think what we need to do is come up with a way that you can decide to choose the books and what books you would like, and we can create some kind of service where you can come and pick up those books. So that is a really good question, and I will get back to you on that one. And also the extra library materials, when will they be made available? Ms. Pellish is working on that as we speak, and as soon as those are available, we will make sure that we get that to you and let you know when they will be available. Okay. All right, so one of the questions was, do kids go to school on February 1st? Only the kids who are coming to the hybrid in-person program come to the building on February 1st. So those of you who signed up, you should know. And if you're on this presentation here, your kids are going to be in the virtual setting. Okay. There was a question that was asked in your opinion, what is the advantage or disadvantage of remaining virtual versus attending in person? That's a good one. Obviously, there are, I think, advantages and both disadvantages if you look at either one. At this point, I can't say I have an opinion on I would love to see your students every day and love to see your children every day, but that's just my opinion. However, I do know that you have to look at your own individual circumstances, and make that decision on your own. I will say that we are going to make every opportunity to include your children who are remaining in virtual in everything that we are doing in our in-person as much as possible. So assemblies, anything that we do within the building, we will connect. A lot of it's going to be done virtually anyway, so we will make sure that we include all of our students involved in those activities. Okay. One of the questions was, as well as another regarding the remote learning and students being able to see or hear students in the virtual setting. So I will say that students who are in the classrooms, okay, will be able to see if teachers will project their Google Meet they'll be able to see the students if they do project that on the screen. They'll be able to see their fellow classmates. They will be able to hear their fellow classmates if they're asking or answering a question on the screen. However, that interaction, direct interaction between every single student in that space, will be limited if they want to talk directly. However, the teachers do have the capability, and the microphones are set to the point where within 15 feet away from the computers, students can answer a question and it can be heard by the students who are on virtual as well. One question was about the specialists. So the specialists are going to be doing both virtual and in person at the same time. So just like they are now with everyone obviously in the virtual, they're going to be doing the lesson just like the teachers will be doing. They will have a group of students in front of them and a group of students, your students connected virtually. And the other question was, will there be any openings for a child to move totally from virtual hybrid to in-person hybrid? At this time, I will say no, because of the fact that we have limited numbers and we have, we know that if your child is in hybrid, we do have the capability to have them decide to go full virtual. But at this time, there is no opportunity for current openings, or I'm not sure if they are going to open that up at some point later on in the school year. But if that is the decision that is made, then we will share that information. Question was about sync. Will sync classes be available this year? I do know that there's discussion about how that will happen. So I'm pretty sure that will be happening. So if your child participated in sync, there will be, I am fairly sure that those things will happen. We're just working on the logistics of it now. So I will share that when we have it. Okay. All right, another question was about some of the breakout rooms. There will be opportunities for some breakout rooms to occur. I will say that this mainly will probably be in the afternoon during the asynchronous time for students, and for those small groups. So we do have a limitation with the technology for all students to do that, but it will happen mainly in the afternoon. All right, and I do want to clarify that, and if I did not state this earlier, the lunch period is the lunch and recess together combined is a 40-minute block. So just as it is now, it has not changed. Okay. All right, I think the other questions were already asked. Okay. All right, well, I want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon. If you have any, we are going to try to gather a lot of these questions, create a FAQ for everyone. If you have any questions that you still have or that come up after this presentation, feel free to email me, nperez@cheltenham.org, or you can reach out to Mrs. O'Connor, COCONNOR@cheltenham.org. I want to thank everyone for your time this afternoon, and I hope you had a chance to check out the inauguration festivities. Enjoy the rest of your day.